Okay, just the audio there. Um, we're still in Catalyst, the category and the study index, and our first session point will be 66.13. Questioner, I have observed many activities known as psychic surgery in the area of the Philippine Islands. It was my assumption that these healers are providing what I would call a training aid or a way of creating a reconfiguration of the mind of the patient to be healed as the relatively naive patient observes the action of the healer and seeing the materialized blood, etc., then reconfigures the roots of mind to believe, you might say, the healing is done and therefore heals himself. Is this analysis that I made correct? I am Ra. This is correct. We may speak slightly further upon this type of opportunity. There are times when the malcondition to be altered is without emotional, mental, or spiritual interest to the entity and is merely that which has, perhaps by chance, genetic arrangement, occurred. In these cases, that which is apparently dematerialized will remain dematerialized and may be so observed as so by any observer. The malcondition which has an emotional, mental, or spiritual charge is likely not to remain dematerialized in the sense of the showing of the objective referent to an observer. However, if the opportunity has been taken by the seeker, the apparent malcondition of the physical complex will be at variance with the actual health, as you call this distortion, of the seeker, and the lack of experiencing the distortions which the objective referent would suggest still held sway. For instance, in this instrument, the removal of 3 small cysts was the removal of material having no interest to the entity. Thus, these growths remained dematerialized after the so-called psychic surgery experience. In other psychic surgery, the kidneys of this instrument were carefully offered a new configuration of beingness, which the entity embraced. However, this particular portion of the mind-body-spirit complex carried a great deal of emotional, mental, and spiritual charge due to this distorted functioning being the cause of great illness and a certain configuration of events which culminated in this entity's conscious decision to be of service. Therefore, any objective scanning of this entity's renal complex would indicate the rather extreme dysfunctional aspect which it showed previous to the psychic surgery experience, as you call it. The key is not in the continuation of the dematerialization of distortion to the eye of the beholder, but rather lies in the choosing of the newly materialized configuration, which exists in time-space. What a mouthful. Is so, hold on. It seems like there is an aspect of the psychic surgery that Ra is acknowledging, where, again, which we've seen in other passages, the willingness and the mental configuration of the other self who wants to be healed, it is their accepting of the catalyst or the energizing that the healer is providing that gives them the permission slip to heal themselves. And so in the case of the psychic surgery, Don is saying, is it that when they see this material coming out, that maybe the toxins or some other kind of aspect of psychic surgery, they see something mirroring bodily fluids, and so they have this new window opened into the idea that, okay, I can use this to heal myself. That acceptance of that new configuration, that window of opening into a new beingness, that allows them to make use of their own ability. And Ra agrees with that assessment, but then brings up I think, a valid point that for some other selves, which I think is important to note, there isn't always an emotional, mental, or spiritual cause behind a physical, I like the word malcondition, because it's not permanent. It's just an alteration of an initial condition. It is perhaps by chance genetic arrangement. So for some, it has nothing to do with pre-incarnative choices, has nothing to do with unprocessed catalyst, has nothing to do with any of that. Sometimes it's just a genetic arrangement, a chance genetic arrangement. And that's important to note because if something is continuously happening, sometimes there's a detriment, I feel, to always thinking that it's something, oh, I didn't process some emotion, or I'm too angry, or I did this to myself to balance some karma. Sometimes there could be a problem with always jumping to that conclusion when we have persistent conditions. Sometimes it is just chance genetic arrangement, as Ra used that term here. And in those cases, if the psychic surgery is successful because the other self accepted the new configuration, they allowed it to manifest. If the condition would be dematerializing, whatever that is, and others would see it as that as well. I'm going to share my screen again so you can see the point that I'm referencing. Share. Okay. Okay, so where Ra is saying in these cases, that which is apparently dematerialized will remain dematerialized and may be observed as so by any observer. Um, I guess I do have a personal example with a relative who was born with a condition with her eye, the muscles in her eye, and it gave her a very distinct appearance. Like when you looked, you could see something was visibly wrong with the structure of the eye, but she would routinely pray over her eye using healing scriptures, and now you cannot tell anything happened to her eye. She didn't go to any doctors, didn't take any medicine. She didn't even do face yoga or, acupressure. She did nothing but pray over her eye, and it healed. And when you look at her, you cannot tell that anything was ever wrong, when years ago and for many years you could. So in this case, if it was a chance genetic arrangement and she was able to, in this case, initiate the new configuration herself with her own will and desire, and using healing scriptures as the catalyst, as the energizer to tap in, When we, the observer, look at her, when I look at her, I see nothing, I see no sign of the muscular ocular failure that was there prior. So the condition dematerialized and it remained dematerialized to me and to everyone else. Now, then we go into this paragraph where it sounds like if there is a spiritual, emotional, or mental charge to whatever the condition is, that will, perhaps in the physical sense, still hold its configuration. Like it'll still be materialized. Um, for example, Ra is bringing up the psychic surgery done on Carla's kidneys. With the 3 cysts, it seems like because there was no interest, it says the removal of material having no interest to the entity, there was no spiritual, mental, or emotional charge to those cysts being there. So when the growths were removed in that way, they remained dematerialized completely to any observer because there was no emotional, mental, or spiritual charge behind them. But with her kidneys, because there were a lot of spiritual, emotional, and even pre-incarnative attachments to that manifestation of her physical body, even though she is not affected in a negative way by them anymore, one would still look and see evidence of extreme dysfunction in the renal complex. The key then being that it's not so much about what is seen or not seen in the actual physical vehicle as it relates to the healing, but rather the relationship and the acceptance of that new configuration in the non-physical realms, which is interesting. I I don't know that it has a great importance. I mean, like if you heal a part of your body and you accept that new configuration, it's time space configuration. It won't really matter what someone sees on the outside or what shows up in a machine, because there are plenty of people who have diagnosis and they're like, oh, you're in your last stages or you're terminal or you've got growths the size of this or that. And then the person steps out on faith and they do a radical fast or radical diet change. And then they go back to the doctor and they're like, how are you still alive? Look at what the scans are showing. But because they had accepted that time space configuration and not the space time configuration that says you've got masses and all this other stuff, but the time space configuration, which is pure and in alignment, it doesn't matter. One is illusion and one is not illusion. Well, time space is also illusion, but it is a more pure configuration. So I think Rob was just giving extra information here. Um, whether someone sees or not, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you accept. Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts related to any of that? Okay, so we'll go to 66.14, which is just a continuation questioner. Would you explain that last comment about the configuration in time-space? I am Ra. Healing is done in the time-space portion of the mind-body-spirit complex, is adopted by the form-making or etheric body, and is then given to the space-time physical illusion for use in the activated yellow ray mind-body-spirit complex. It is the adoption of the configuration which you call health by the etheric body in time-space, which is the key to what you call health, not any event which occurs in space-time. That's very important. Um, that's very important. It, so what we're doing in the physical is really just an energizing or a catalyst so that we can make use of our ability to tap into the time space configuration of whatever body part or mental state we're trying to access. In this process, you may see the transdimensional aspect of what you call will, for it is the will, the seeking, the desire of the entity which causes the indigo body to use the novel configuration and to reform the body which exists in space-time. This is done in an instant and may be said to operate without regard to time. So, yeah, I've heard this saying floating around. Uh, the spirit is not in the body's in the spirit. So it really seems like this physical form, we have it the other way around, which is weird when you think about it, because our body feels so solid, so real, so impactful. But there's actually this whole form and mass of energy that, if we're aware of it, can tell the physical body what to do, what to look like, how to be. And it's the form maker body, it's our indigo body, which we know is a very high level body. The very fact that we actively tap into it to influence our physical body is kind of an understated reveal here, because we think that maybe we only use the indigo body when we're in meditation or when we're astral traveling or when we're going to the other side permanently. But no, we're actually tapping into it to sustain a physical form. It's how we have a physical body, because we're actively using the form maker, but not consciously. When we are consciously using it, I think in the future, we'll probably be able to do a lot of pretty crazy things with our physical body when we have that understanding, whether it's changing our DNA structure. We talk about environmental changes. Well, how do other species change when their environment changes? If they have these understandings of the indigo body being able to influence new configurations to shift and reform the body which exists in space time, whether it's ours or theirs, they probably alter the configuration, whether it's moving from a carbon-based system to a nitrogen-based cellular system or whatever. And or maybe your skin needs more copper to handle a change in the environment, or maybe you alter your lungs or something. I don't know. Just some extra thoughts there on that concept. And the last part here, we may note that in the healing of very young children, there is often an apparent healing by the healer in which the young entity has no part. This is never so, for the mind body spirit complex in time space is always capable of willing the distortions it chooses for experience, no matter what the apparent age, as you call it, of the entity. So even children can make and probably do make use of this high level of indigo body influencing and reforming the body in space time. Any thoughts, questions, comments related to any of that? Okay, so, let me see what's in the chat. Oh, hey, Nikki, welcome. Um, Good to see you. Your hair got long.
I know, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Thank you.
Um, like like Tabitha, guys, who sometimes shows up here. Nikki is my dear sister, dear friend. Um, we've known each other for many years and have a deep bond spiritually. She's a loving, talented, energetic powerhouse. Has done
Thank you.
so much for the community of spiritual seekers. So loving, so compassionate. Um, really blessed and grateful to know her and have her in my life. She's a beautiful artist. She's one of those people you can look at the art and it will bring you to tears. You can feel her energy. She's so giving.
You're gonna make
Has
me cry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. She's given
Thank
me
you.
so many beautiful experiences when I talk about
Yeah,
like our gatherings in Canada under the stars. That was her beautiful
yeah.
land, beautiful place. Um, so welcome, Nikki.
Thank you, sweetheart. I love you so much too.
Love you too. And these are all my beloved brothers and sisters of the Law of One communities. Adam, Aram, Dan, Regs, Fred. Um, yes. Soul
Hi,
family,
guys.
meet soul family.
Aw, nice to meet everybody.
So we're we're still reading the raw contact. We'll probably always be reading the raw contact.
Yeah.
But um we're taking it in the study index where like it goes topic by topic and you know about catalyst. It's like everything that we experience that helps us to grow, and we're just learning about the different ways that catalyst affects us. But lately, we've been talking about healing and how, like, everything has a reason for our bodies, what happens to them, and how we can use it to grow. And in this context, we're learning about like uh, this phenomena of the psychic surgery and how it's really our awareness and our ability to accept that new configuration if that's, if there's no strong pre-incarnative charge, that is what allows us to heal. Like, we just need that permission slip for us to tap into our own ability to make those changes if it's not something pre-incarnative. um and welcome, Dan. I don't know if I said welcome.
Yeah,
And
say hi, everybody. Thank you.
mm-hmm.
Hi.
Okay, we have another session point here. 66.32. Mm, okay, let me share my screen. Okay, 66.32, questioner. Well, then, is physical disease and illness as we know it on this planet rather widespread on a third density negative planet just before harvest into fourth density negative? Okay, so we're talking about if it was a 3D negative planet, not like Gaia, but like purely negative 3D planet, if there would be an increase in malconditions before its harvest. I am Ra. Physical complex distortions of which you speak are likely to be less found as fourth density negative begins to be a probable choice of harvest due to the extreme interest in the self, which characterizes the harvestable third density negative entity. Much more care is taken of the physical body, as well as much more discipline being offered to the self mentally. This is an orientation of great self-interest and self-discipline. There are still instances of the types of dis-ease which are associated with the mind complex distortions of negative emotions such as anger. However, in an harvestable entity, these emotional distortions are much more likely to be used as catalyst in an expressive and destructive sense as regards the object of anger. So, interestingly enough, if we're dealing with a purely negatively polarized service to self planet, the entities there aren't going to be running around with grotesque and really limited physical forms. They're actually going to probably be obsessed with having a physical form that is perfect and under their control, because the way of the negatively polarized entity is control. And so naturally, they want to have control over their weight, control over their appearance, facial structure. Everything will be like, I could just perceive them having an obsession with the outer appearance, an obsession with health. Everything would have to be perfect and in control because that shows that they have dominion or power over their physical form, which would be the first expression of their true service to self path or expression. And then when they do have emotions, if they're moving towards harvestability, they're not going to suppress them so much as they'll use them, as Raj sharing here, as a catalyst to do more service to self things. So, for example, if it's anger, they're not going to suppress the anger so much as they're going to use it to lash out and control others. Perhaps the way like a narcissist may use anger as a way to mm, subjugate or punish or control whoever's around them, spouse or friends. So we're just getting a little view here on how they would do it. It is mentioned in other parts of the raw contact that in the case of someone, in the case of a negatively polarized entity taking on lifetimes that were physically debilitating, that caused a lot of damage to the physical vehicle or their mental, emotional body, it would be only in the ways of increasing their ability to hold negative emotion. But as they move forward and get more sophisticated and advanced, they wouldn't use those methods anymore. They would want a perfect body, uh, the best conditions where they can enact control. And now 66.33. Any questions, comments related to any of that? Okay. 66.33, questioner. I am trying to understand the way that disease and bodily distortions are generated with respect to polarities, both positive and negative. It seems that they are generated in some way to create the split or polarization, that they have a function in creating the original polarization that occurs in third density. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is not precisely correct. Distortions of the bodily or mental complex are those distortions found in beings which have need of experiences which aid in polarization. These polarizations may be those of entities which have already chosen the path or polarization to be followed. It is more likely for positively oriented individuals to be experiencing distortions within the physical complex due to the lack of consuming interest in the self and the emphasis on service to others. Moreover, in an unpolarized entity, catalyst of the physical distortion nature will be generated at random. The hopeful result is, as you say, the original choice of polarity. Oftentimes, this choice is not made, but the catalyst continues to be generated. In the negatively oriented individual, the physical body is likely to be more carefully tended and the mind disciplined against physical distortions. So this has come up before, but the idea is that all of our experiences that we have, whether it's a mental or emotional or spiritual or physical state that we come in with or we develop over our incarnation, we all at the highest level have put it into play because it allows our soul to grow in some way, or it allows us to be of greater service to others by how that state affects our mind, bodies, and spirits. Yes, there is a time, and probably many millions of incarnations ago, when our soul spark just started out, where we just had automatic incarnations, just going through a life, dying, having all these things happen to us. But over time, we started to develop a polarity. We were either moving closer towards love or away from it, towards service to others or service to self, or positive or negative, the poles. And then once we had that moment, our catalysts started to be more consciously generated in line with whatever we chose. Most, if not all of us, chose love in these communities, love and service to others, service to the creation as the creator experiencing itself. So after a certain point, all of our catalyst is to help us wax stronger in love and all of those expressions of love, whether it's joy, peace, happiness, bliss, giving, compassion, all of the lessons of love. So that's what our catalyst is ultimately for. And if it's on the other side, then it's towards control and away from love. But it goes back around, we know, to love in the end anyway. But everyone has their freedom to choose their path. I think it's interesting here that Ross said it is more likely for positively oriented individuals to be experiencing distortions within the physical complex due to the lack of consuming interest in the self and the emphasis on service to others. So to me, that's revealing that there's some physical conditions we experience, and I could also say mental and emotional conditions we experience because we're not focusing on ourselves, because of a lack of consuming interest in the self. So, because we're not so self absorbed, because we're not giving appropriate attention to the self that we give to others, sometimes that can be why we have a distortion of our physical complex or our mental or emotional, which can be just as debilitating as physical for the same reasons, but expressed in different ways. I never thought about that, that not focusing on yourself can be a reason why. And then, of course, that physical, emotional, or mental distortion then makes you have to have a full stop and focus on you. Otherwise, you would never. And then undoubtedly, you might reduce your ability to serve others because you're so depleted within the self. Kind of reminds me of when Morris was talking about his experience, um, or was that I think that was a passage. Yes, Ra was saying there was some catalyst that we experience when we move to fourth density bodies because, for example, we'd be so focused on service and evolution and learning and experiencing that we would find it kind of a chore to have to stop and eat and do all of these biological things. So that's one example of like there being a catalyst in just not knowing how to serve the self as you serve others. Reg said STS equal no fatties. What?
I misinterpreted that. I was upset because I have a fatty rolled up ready to burn right now.
Oh, you mean uh weed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that's what it's called. But
But it says down there at the end that the STS the STS oriented won't be, how does it word it? Um, won't be distorted as much physically and mentally.
yes, because
Now,
mhm,
I see. This is odd to me because I'm sitting here and I do. I mean, okay, I can say I am more physical than most of the people that I work with. I'm more physical than half of my children who are half of my age, but that's kind of um, not a normal thing. But at the same time, I guess, I mean, I do have physical limitations. I couldn't do certain sports in high school because I could only, if I sprint ran, I would hurt myself.
mhm.
Uh, my legs and ankles give out. But also, um, I guess, I mean, my back limits me tremendously. I would do really stupid human stunts if my back didn't cause me problems. But I don't know. I just I see things like that, and I guess I don't really consider myself as being physically limited, but maybe
Uh,
I am.
it sounds like at least part of you is not accepting fully the space-time configuration of of your back or its apparent limitations. And usually because of how important the back is, it should interfere with almost everything you try to do and limit you. But if you are still able to be active, you're still able to do all of these things, then perhaps you are tapping more into its time space configuration, which is not bound by.
Andre and I talked about that one night, and what he said kind of made sense because the as above, so below type duality of time space space time. Um, he said sometimes your physical. He's a big Dolores Cannon person, and he said a lot of times that when you get physical manifestations, it can be something that your etheric is trying to get your attention on. And he told me that lower back pain is because you are spiritually feeling like you don't have support, like the people that are closest, the people that you love and care about the most, the closest to you, aren't supportive of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, that could not be more true than if you hear me. 5 minute conversation, and you'll understand that I probably would be logical to think that way given my situation. And I've had back problems for years. So it probably is very true. I just wonder how that ties into that because they're talking about STS, STO, and with the STO having those physical limitations. I mean, Carla was, of course, an extreme example of that, but I think we do all, in some ways, have that. I wonder how much of it ties in etherically, like what I was describing with my back. If everyone is able to understand it in that way, time space to space time.
Uh, Even with the understanding, I still think we have to go through the process of
Oh yeah, I think maybe it points us in a direction closer to the correct angle to go through the process.
I I find it easier to approach it more from the physical first and then start to consider what mental or emotional stimuli is being processed by the body because in our whole lives we experience so many different things and I I don't know that I'm able to just right away pinpoint, okay, this pain is associated with this specific aspect of a mental or emotional situation in my life that is being manifested by my body. Um, like I know Ra was talking about the muscle pain and like the shoulders and arms of Dawn being a manifestation of him not processing the fact that part of him is weighed down by the responsibility of the working of his incarnation, the gravity and weight of the working and service, plus the caring of others. And so that unwillingness to face the fact that, yes, this is hard. Yes, this does take a lot out of me. I love it, but it's hard. Denying that manifests as feeling like a weight on the shoulders and the pain in the muscles from lifting, you know. But if you just initially have these kinds of feelings and you think about the whole experiences of your life, your 40, 50, 60 years of life, you don't automatically know what memory or state is being processed. And it's that ambiguity and that needle in a haystack kind of mm, job that is introduced when you go just from that angle first that makes it something I don't choose right away. Like I'll think about practical reasons why my shoulder bothers me, why I can't lift it up to a certain height. I can move it, but I cannot lift it. For me, first applying the physical things. What could this be? Maybe I need acupuncture.
Hmm.
Maybe I need uh to massage it. Maybe I need more magnesium. I'll go through all of these steps first, and then if none of that's working, I'll try a purely energetic thing. And then I saw that I had really good motion and movement. I could lift it after it received Reiki. So after receiving pure non-physical energy, there was a shift there. And now I'm like, okay, so it's not a physical based con- condition. This is energetic. And then I start thinking about all of the things. But yeah, it's a valid way to look at it from the emotional mental perspective, but I don't start there because of how needle in a haystack it is, if that makes
Right.
sense.
That's completely valid because I mean, my elbow will bother me. Well, I know why my elbow bothers me. Sometimes I use a hand tool for 8 hours a day. My elbow's going to bother me. I'm 50 years old, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's understandable. But the reason the back pain made me question it is because it will seemingly come out of nowhere. Like for no reason, I will sneeze wrong and my back will be out and it will if it does a real number on me, I'll be out of work for the whole week.
Okay.
So that's a hefty price to pay for sneezing wrong or
Yeah.
turning the wrong way to bend over when actually I'm literally jumping on the back of semi trucks to help drivers unload and I can hop right up on the machine to do stuff and that's normal.
Right.
Um, that's kind of why I questioned it. It's and it does get excavated by me overdoing it. If I'm digging in landscaping gravel all day, chances are I'm going to compromise my back and I can easily hurt myself. That's a
Mhm.
no-brainer.
Right.
I know why it's hurt. But sometimes in a lot anytime it seems like half of the time there's really no reason for it. And it has worked out where I've hurt my back, it's limited me, and it's actually allowed something else to happen positive that wouldn't have happened had I not hurt my back.
Okay.
So I kind of already have an inkling
Gotcha.
that there's not just the physical thing going on, there's
Mhm.
something else tied to it. Maybe not always, but at least sometimes.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I think you have a good understanding of it and you have enough feedback from your own body and your own reality to know the direction to go. That makes sense. And I do wonder if you do, I don't, again, I'm not sure how to just initiate these kinds of changes, but I wonder if, let's say, you met a local group of people you really connect with and align with. They don't necessarily have to be Law of One seekers, but anybody, and they were really supportive, and ended up doing everything together and really forging a family, a blood brotherhood. I wonder if having that sense of, wow, I can rely on others. I do have a support system. they've got my back. They're right here. I do wonder if that would affect your lower back in a positive way, to have that energy of support there. Physically there.
Funny enough, thinking about it, it would help physically because I wouldn't have to do so much damn work.
Yes, in the very, specific way, but like energetically, emotionally, like how I was telling you
Yeah.
guys a while back about Tom Kenyon, who had thyroid issues, and they could not find a source of why he had the thyroid issues. And he would do the supplements and holistic methods, and nothing worked. So then he started to look at it only after exhausting the physical options, what energetically it could be. And of course, the throat, thyroid, Blue Ray energy center, or the throat chakra. And he started thinking about his relationships where he couldn't really speak his truth and felt restricted, and it came back to his mom. And so he had always felt limited. He couldn't express himself to his mom. He felt really beholden to her and unable to just be himself. And then, as a manifestation of his mm, commitment to being his own person more, communicating his own self, he decided not to, stay with her for Christmas. He stayed with his wife, and they did their own thing. And he communicated to her, "Look, I love you, Mom. I'm not going to, basically do whatever you want me to do this holiday yet again." And maybe within a few months, his thyroid issues began to clear up. So he started to have more conversations with his mom, just kind of sharing how he felt and being more honest. And his thyroid condition left completely, and it hasn't come back. And so in his case, having that energy of empowerment return to him, even though it's just talking, that cleared up his condition. So
But
I,
that's how we express ourselves with talking.
yeah. So even if they didn't, this group, even if they didn't physically help you lift and move things so you don't have to use your back, just that energy of people being around you that have your back, an abundance truly, I think that would affect your back too, without them even needing to lift anything physical or touch you in any way.
I agree.
So it's 9:07. We usually go for about an hour. Um, did anyone have any questions, comments, or anything that they wanted to share?